follow through on their commitment to the new meningitis B vaccine so that more families are spared the tragedy of this terrible disease. And all 3 SDLP MPs voted to introduce standardised cigarette packaging in the interests of public health and curbing the number of young people who get addicted to smoking. We campaigned to protect winter fuel payments for pensioners and voted against unfair changes to public sector pension reform. We championed forward-looking economic policies such as cutting the rate of VAT on the tourism industry to create jobs and economic growth, especially for our young people. We have also worked with the Treasury to secure an agreement for the Northern Ireland aggregate sector, particularly the quarry industry, which can help the wider construction industry begin to grow again. We have opposed ill-considered and amoral military campaigns in the Middle East and consistently supported an approach grounded in humanitarian and developmental considerations, as my colleague Mark Durkan has already referred to. And personally, I will continue to fight for our local fishermen and farmers. The whole rural economy is at the heart of the SDLP's Westminster agenda. This includes our continued campaign against a reckless UK exit from the European Union, which would devastate our rural economy and leave the North on the fringes, isolated on the fringes of Europe. All elected SDLP MPs will take their seats to fight for your family and your future. We will be working tirelessly where it really counts, on the floor of the House of Commons and in the committee rooms. And as my colleague Mark Durkan said, we will work closely with those parties at Westminster who are opposing austerity and standing in the way of another 5 years of economic pain and cuts. This is a time of great change in politics across these islands, and your vote should go to the SDLP, a party that will be part of a positive and progressive alliance at Westminster, not the same tired politics of the past. Some will tell you that there is no alternative, but the SDLP does represent a better way. We will fight for a new deal for the North at Westminster. On the 7th of May, colleagues, we're going out there and we're telling people to vote SDLP to return MPs to Westminster who will take their seats and fight for the rights of all of the people.
Thank you, Margaret. Now I am delighted to call up one of our most recognisable new and formidable faces on and off the pitch, Justin McNulty, who is standing in Newry and Armagh. Justin.
Friends, I want to put right a 10-year-old wrong. In 2005, Newry and Armagh lost its voice. I want to take back that voice and make it heard where it counts and when it counts. I know that I'm stepping into big shoes. In Seamus Mallon, the people of Newry and Armagh had a champion. He fought for them, fought for jobs, fought for investment, fought to create a genuinely shared community, just like Don McBradley has done in the Assembly since 2003. I want to carry on that fight as MP and to do away with the nonsense of an elected representative who refuses to represent the people. How can any party claim to be anti-austerity when they won't go to London and make that argument? I am proud to be part of a party which will change the future of the North and of this island. Proud to look the people of Newry and Armagh in the eye and say, send me to Westminster, and I will go there and fight for you. I am proud to work alongside one of the best constituency MPs in the north of Ireland, our party leader, Alasdair McDonnell.
Thank you very much. I want to speak briefly to you about the economy, and particularly the particular aspect of the economy I want to talk about is creating a prosperity process. I want to thank colleagues today. It's a magnificent turnout of candidates and indeed other party members, and I personally am very proud of that. You've done the party proud. But people like me, and indeed like most of you in this room, got into politics to make a difference. We saw something wrong and we said that's not fair, or that could be done better. And we go about trying to do something about it. Nothing in this part of the world made as much difference. Nothing fundamentally changed people's lives as so much as making peace. Peace was not just an end in itself. It was supposed to be the new beginning of something better, to make it possible for hard-working families to have ambition and to seek a better life for themselves and their children. But that was nearly a generation ago. What has our political system delivered since then, you might ask? After a lot of stops and starts, we got devolution back on the rails in 2007. But what has happened since then that has made any real difference to people's lives? Sadly, we have to conclude that our ship of state is dead in the water. The first mate and the deputy first mate are up on the bridge, looking around them. They can't agree on a course, much less they can't even agree to get the engines going. And instead they cry, "Look, look, we're not sailing backwards." And they who came so very late to the peace process ask the world for another round of applause because they're not sailing backwards. In the last 8 years, in fact, they haven't sailed an inch. In fact, they haven't the ambition required even to sail anywhere. And as we begin drifting towards the rocks, their only interest is in pointing the finger at each other, blaming each other. For me, for the SDLP, and I know for all of us in this room, that is not good enough. It is totally unacceptable for me, my children, or for the future. There is a better way for us to do politics. The Stormont House Agreement and its farcical aftermath have laid bare the limits to our current politics. If anyone was ever in doubt, now they know the Treasurer in London calls the tune and pulls the choke lead. Some people can argue about just how big the subsidy is. I've heard some fantastic arguments, some of them even coming from the Tooth Fairy School of Economics. But we can agree that there's a substantial amount of money there required. And the reason is very simple. According to the Assembly's Enterprise, Trade and Investment Committee, just 37% of what we produce here comes out of the private sector. Everything else comes out of government in one form or another. These are astounding proportions, almost the reverse of what happens in the rest of this island and across Europe. To put it bluntly, we're not able to pay our way, and that's why people in the Treasury in London can tell us what to do. We are subsidised, we have subsidy politics, and in turn, because of that, we have politics without ambition and politics without meaningful social development that we so badly require. We have sham politics that can easily and instantly be diverted into rows about flags and parades. It is not the real politics that we require, about real issues which affect the hard-working families. If we can build a sustainable economy, we can harness the means to protect our vulnerable. We can provide a welfare service that can be funded and will assist people in their search for a better future, a more prosperous future. That's what sustainable politics and a sustainable politics mean to me. Sustainable economy mean to me. What we have now is politics without economics, which will not face the hard facts of our economic reality. And I believe what we have now is not sustainable. Here in Northern Ireland, we need a new deal. Of course, everyone pays lip service to the idea of rebalancing our economy. Even David Cameron made a big issue of it before the last Westminster election, and then admitted it would take a generation. But since then, all we've seen from him is cuts upon cuts in public expenditure. But a more balanced economy will not come from one-sided cuts-driven agenda. And it's not something that will happen by just wishing for it. It won't happen by magic, it won't happen organically, and it won't happen spontaneously. It will not be rebalanced either by the gradual action of market forces. It will not be done by just cutting corporation tax alone. And it certainly won't be done by firing hundreds of public sector workers. In fact, the problem is not in the public sector at all. Our public sector is needed to deliver the services. The problem we have is our private sector is far, far, far too small. And what we need, and what we promise to deliver, is a new deal for the North. And even the private sector that we have at the moment is dependent, heavily dependent, on the public spending. So we need the section of local industry that is genuinely wealth creating and wealth generating to be grown from the tiny space it's in at the moment to being an all-embracing, functional economy that gives people opportunity. You might ask how many of our companies